Okay, welcome to tip number 2, which is about how to tackle worry with pre-planning your overreactions. Okay, so first we're going to take a look at what worry is, why we stress out, why we worry, and then I'll give you the actual tools you can use to basically reduce it. Okay, so what is worry? So worry happens when people are uncertain of something. So they're uncertain that that they'll get a job, or that the mortgage approval will happen. Something that may or may not happen because the variables that exist, they have no control over it. But right here I have a couple. So number one is people seek reassurance to gain more confidence. So they think that, well, if we try to solve it in our heads, if we try to think, then it'll give us more reassurance, and then we'll become more confident that it actually may happen. So we'll get what we want. Okay. The second thing is we try to come up with more information. We think that if we think about it in our heads, somehow more information is going to appear in the head. Now, maybe yes or maybe not, okay? But that's part of, we try to, to do it naturally, okay? And the third reason is we believe that gaining certainty will reduce the risk of harm, okay? So we think that, well, if we spend this incredible amount of time in our brains trying to figure things out, then because we're so effective at it, maybe the thing will not happen, okay? But the reality is it's in the head, it's not in the real world. You don't know what's going to happen because it didn't happen yet. So worry is when you're trying to solve a problem or create a solution inside your head to something that did not happen yet, and you're basically just trying to come up with ideas, okay? So the problem with this is that I'm a big, I'm probably I used to be okay when I was younger, but then it somehow began to develop, and I became really bad at worrying, and about everything, even the small stuff. I'll be worried that my car's gonna break down, which is not the case at all. I used to worry that the payments I'm supposed to make in the months I'm not gonna make, even though I know that I'm gonna get the money, but for some reason I'm worried that I'm not gonna make the payments. Okay, it just screwed up stuff in the head. Okay, and what happens with this, and this is the key thing right here, is inside our heads, okay, we create a perception, okay, that we are in control. But in reality, we may not have control at all or have very limited control. But because we think about it so much, that we convince ourselves that what we have thought of is the truth. And when we arrive to that level, we begin to believe the truth even more. And then once we believe in it, then we become 100% convinced that that's what's going to happen. And this is the big problem, because when you convince yourself, you think it's already happened, or that's it, but later on it doesn't happen, okay, then you freak out. You go, whoa, whoa, okay? But what actually happened is you did it to yourself. That's what happened. So number one solution is you want to track, okay, your overreactions, and then you want to pre-plan it for the next time. So pre-plan your overreactions, okay? So what you want to do first is when you overreact, in that moment, the only thing you have to remember is grab some kind of either a piece of paper, a notepad, maybe your cell phone, and open the note function on the cell phone, and then write every single thought that comes to you and every single urge that you have. okay, and just write everything there, okay? Just type it as long as you possibly can type it, okay? So the reason for doing this is you want to capture whatever thoughts, feelings you have for that specific worry that you're experiencing, because it is highly likely that the next time you're going to worry, you're going to have a similar type of thoughts, feelings that are going to come up, okay? And your goal is to find out how often this similar type worries or different type worries happen. For instance, with me is when I start to worry, okay, the number one thing I want to do is I want to leave the city. I want to leave the city. I want to say, fuck this, and I want to leave it. I say, screw this life. Done. Okay? But then I go back, I'm going to go, wait a second, Ivan, this is one of your worries. This is one of your urges, your overreactions you're having. You had this thing happen to you since like 2015. You had this leave the city type of reaction happen to you. And so then I go, okay, that's just a reaction. Like I just need to calm down. Okay. Okay. So the second thing you want to do, okay, is you want to actually record, like when you worry, you say, well, this is going to happen, but then actually record what actually happens. So and do it like for longer periods of time, like 3 months, 6 months, a year. The reason for this is you'll see that how your prediction, how you wrote at that time that you were just creating stuff in your brain, and then you'll see how the actual things would happen. And what you also want to write down is how did you like manage it, or how did you behave, during that period of time. Like, I wasn't, let's say, overreacting too much, but let's say I ate a lot of food, or I went outside a lot with friends, or like you want to put some notes in there of things you did, because it's going to indicate like that you weren't completely overreacting, okay, or you were. Okay, so the reason is you want to go for the longer term, because the longer term is going to give you more information. The reason I know about mine first overreaction, because I've been tracking it since 2015. Okay, the longer term is what's going to give you more info. That's what you want, because you're going to isolate more variables in it. And the interesting thing about this is there was in the study, there was one study that I found when I read the book The Worry Solution, and in that study there was, they said that they asked people to basically predict what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks, and then they looked at what actually happened. And what happened was that the people predicted that some pretty bad things going to happen in 2 weeks, but what happened was 85% of the things they predicted did not actually happen. So, that's what you're trying to do here, okay? And the last thing is very important, and this is more in terms of, this can be immediate, or you can even plan it for the future. And the key here is when you begin to worry and you're all into yourself, when you're going crazy, is to have some kind of pre-planned exit strategy on the physical level. So what I mean by physical level is you have to change your environment. So this is what this is about, changing your environment when you're super worried. So for instance, with me is the one thing I used to do, but I still do it, is when I'm super worried, I can go for a walk in the park. I can go actually take a car and drive to a different city and spend like a day there. Okay, or I could do something a little bit more in the city, and sometimes I would just go to like a plaza that I've never been, and I just go to different shops. Okay, or I'll go to see somebody that I haven't seen for a while. So you gotta have some kind of like in this, because it changes your whole environment. Because the worry usually comes from it stresses you out from a specific set of circumstances, and if you remove those circumstances, usually the worry kind of goes away, or it calms you down. Okay, so these are the things you want to do in order to worry less. Okay, so that's it for tip number 2, and I'll see you in tip number 3. Thank you.